Well, for any of those Villanova fans thinking that one Bronny James is going to transfer from USC and head to the main line to join the Cats, you could forget about it because it looks like he's staying in the 2024 NBA Draft. Welcome and a good Monday to the PHLY Sixers podcast, along with Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens. Brianna is here producing as always, and you see it. You know why we're asking. Let's talk about it here on this Monday.
LeBron squared, baby.
That's it, man. You get one, you get the other. Maybe. And that's where we're going to start. Do you look at Bronny James, who is now looking like he's going to leave USC and not just transfer, but also remain in the draft? He's currently right now in Chicago for all of the pre-draft combine stuff. And as a result, we start to get the measurements. Kyle will tell us about that. Maybe what some of the projections are from Derek. When Derek was scouting, how would he scout Bronny James? This is a different type of animal here.
Did you just say you
wouldn't? Said he wouldn't. There you have it. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. But
good show, everybody. Thank you to
so
Olipop and Manscaped and everybody else. You know.
Well, Kyle, let's start there, man. I mean, not Olipop and Manscaped. We'll get to them a little bit later, even though we do have the Olipop, Derek and I and Kyle. We all have the Olipop here. But, I mean, what do you make of this? When you look at it seems like the reports during the season, he's going into college. Well, if you decide you want to draft Bronny James, Bron James might opt out of that final year of his deal. He has a player option and could become a package deal. You said LeBron squared. So if you were handling things for the Philadelphia 76ers, does it make good business sense, of course, to take Bronny James with the idea of knowing that LeBron is already in the mix, if that's what you're doing?
To be clear, we're only talking about a second-round pick, right? Nobody's talking about 16.
You're not talking about 16? I saw some people talking about 16, man. I don't know.
So, all right. I want to, before we get to that, I do want to just take everybody through, if you somehow have not seen by now, part of the reason we haven't brought up LeBron or Bronny up until this point is because I didn't have any interest in entertaining this notion until we were pretty sure he was going to be in the draft. And because of how they've changed the pre-draft process, you now have the opportunity to go through a good portion of the draft process, get feedback from scouts, from teams and whatnot, and then ultimately decide to return to school if you'd like to. So the report from Shams Charania on Monday morning that I'm going to have to distinguish that Bronny is expected to stay in the 2024 draft. Now we have some level of certainty, like, okay, he will be there. And we also have to start with the basis for this, which are the public quotes that LeBron himself has given about the idea of playing with his son. So here's just one example. Quote, "I was serious and I'm still serious about it." This is basically right around the time that Bronny declared he was going to play at USC last year. Quote, "Obviously, I've got to continue to keep my body and my mind fresh. I think my mind, most importantly. But at the end of the day, I've done what I had to do in this league, and my son is going to take his journey." End quote. Now, there's a separate one where he says, "Just because it's my aspiration doesn't mean it's his, and I'm okay with that. My job is to support my son in whatever he wants to do. One thing about being a parent is it's not always what you want. It's about listening to your kids and what they want. And that's when you get a real relationship." So those are the two important sides of it to me. LeBron, as a player and Bronny's dad, wants to play with him. Does Bronny want to play with his dad is the unanswered question here. But if we're just talking about, we're looking at it from the Sixers perspective, you're probably not going to get a guarantee like, hey, you take Bronny with pick 41, LeBron is signing the second he can on July 1st. You're not going to get those type of assurances. But I think because of what we know about LeBron's desire to play with his son, you can at least tilt the odds. Now, how much you tilt the odds is another story. Is that 1%? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? I think if it's anything 5% and above in a boost to get LeBron on your team, I think Daryl Morey will do it, and he wouldn't even think twice about it. Because
and you're talking about the 16.
No, I'm talking about the second
Oh,
round.
a second round pick,
41.
yeah,
The second
5%.
round pick, I
For
think
sure.
you would do if there was even like a 0.1% chance. 16, I don't think they're doing one because then they're going to trade that pick.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know where you're at, Derek and Devon. I think there's like a 80% chance that pick gets traded. Yeah. And even that might be low. We'll see.
And it
when
might
we get
not
closer
be
to the
necessarily
draft.
traded like for in a star package. It might be traded for your future pick, so you don't get the cap it this year. It might be traded for maybe an early second round pick and a future pick, so you still have more trade equity or whatnot. But yeah, I agree.
But yeah, a second round pick, like they actually have done. We were talking about this before the show. They've done a pretty good job identifying talent between second round picks and the undrafted guys. You just go through the list between Paul Reed, Bassey, Isaiah Joe, Ricky, obviously on the two-way deal last year. So it's been a decent source of talent. Keeping them has been another story, and that's something we can get into later. But that would be the only hesitation from me is like you might be able to get an actual contributor even in a weak draft. They've done a good job of scouting and preparing for those types of situations. But we're talking about LeBron James, right? Like if you can increase your odds to get LeBron James, I think it's pretty much a no-brainer.
Yeah. No, look, if Daryl was told, if you draft this kid 16, I will come and sign for you, he would draft him at 16, no questions asked. Absolutely no hesitation. If it was even a 50-50 chance, he would burn that first round pick so quickly it's not even funny. If you look at it as a trade for a first round pick for LeBron James, yes, you do that. Is the kid worth a first round pick?
And
no,
a first round pick
close.
in a weak draft too.
But second round pick, I agree with you. Like a couple percentage points helps. Yeah, but I think Daryl would probably entertain it for sure. And I don't know how you would necessarily get this will increase my chances by 5%. Like how are you getting that kind of intel?
Well, I feel like Daryl will be having some conversations with Rich Paul about some other things this summer. So
nobody ever has.
But nobody tampers in the
before,
NBA, and I'm not accusing the Sixers of tampering. But look,
would never accuse them.
There'll be plenty of friendly conversations that are had between various parties in various parts of the NBA, and it could just slip. You never know. Somebody could accidentally tell the wrong person, who then accidentally tells another wrong person, and all of a sudden, people just know. You know.
Here's what I wonder: how many other teams would entertain that? Right? Because if you're like Charlotte, you're not doing that because he's not he's not signing with Charlotte just because. Not that he could sign with Charlotte, just because his son's on the team. Like it has to be a good team with a chance to win. It would be like what Orlando and Philly. Those are the only two teams that seem like they would be realistic.
Right? Because so I was trying to game this out in my head. Or on paper before the show. I don't think anybody's using, if I had to guess, nobody's going to use a top 20 pick on Bronny. I think just base level, it's going to be a tough sell.
Can you imagine drafting him with a 16th pick and not getting LeBron?
The only threat
it's like that meeting that he didn't
in
have.
that top 20 might be Cleveland at 20, and you do the whole, another reunion tour for LeBron, and it's, whatever. But I don't see it. So then go past that top 20. New Orleans at 21. No. Phoenix at 22. Impossible. Milwaukee at 23. Can't happen. New York at 24 and 25. Not happening. The Wizards at 26. LeBron's not playing there. 27, the Wolves. Not going there. 28, Denver. Can't go there. 29, Utah. Not going there. 30, Boston. Can't go there. So then you're out of the first round. Then the first 10 picks of the second round. Toronto, not going there. Utah, not going there. Milwaukee, can't go there. Portland, can't go there. Here's the first interesting one of the second round, but I still think this is one that's interesting to people who are basketball nerds and probably not to LeBron. San Antonio at 35. LeBron going to play with Wemby, and that's his final act. Like that, that would be pretty cool.
I don't think it's on
happening.
LeBron's radar.
I don't think it's happening. 36, Indiana, not going there. Minnesota, New York, we already talked about it. 37, 38. Memphis at 39, not happening. Portland at 40, and then you're to the Sixers. So I don't see anywhere. There might be one, maybe two teams in that 20 to 40 range who would even think about doing it, who have like a remote possibility of drafting Bronny and convincing LeBron to go there, which is why I think that you have to think about it if you're the Sixers. It's certainly the opportunity is going to be there.
Yeah, but so let me play the other side of it. As you said, they certainly have to think of it. But if there's no indication at all, zero, and you're doing it just on the hope that he is going to come here in the summer, then why even waste the time? Yes, and that's because, to your point, if they've identified Isaiah Joe, Charles Bassey, Paul Reed in the second round in the past under this front office with Daryl Morey leading things, then why do it at all? If the guy is not going to translate into an NBA player, which right now we're talking about a second round player, and we know why.
And frankly, second round player is probably being generous.
Exactly, we're being
That's why
generous about
when
it.
Kyle asked how would I scout him, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
If he had any other name, you wouldn't be talking about
well,
this.
you scout all players, so you would.
Yeah,
That's just
sure.
because that's what you do. So, but so to that, you're looking at it and you're saying, well, couldn't they do something else with that 41 pick because they have gotten things right? Could they get a young backup big since Bassey is already out? Paul Reed, he's hanging on by a thread right now. Could they try something out there? Yeah, you could. You probably could. And you could probably identify something else as a second round pick that's going to play in the G League, maybe get some time with the Sixers and develop that player. But the intrigue of it, yes, for Bronny James coming to Philadelphia, potentially with his father, looking at the situation and saying, because of what we talked about last week, where we brought up the LeBron James clip with JJ Redick talking about Tyrese Maxey, the clutch relationship that Maxey, LeBron James, and that whole Rich Paul thing that they have going on, that could be something there. And maybe that is something that you go about. So as the guys have already said, if you're Daryl Morey, sure you look at that. Sure you say, all right, you know what? Maybe we can do this. And maybe Daryl Morey is like, I can convince him to come here because I just took his son. There are a lot of things that maybe we don't hear that are sprinkled around and, little birds chirping in other people's ear of what LeBron
all the
might
made
do.
up rumors about looking for schools
Right,
on the main line
exactly.
and all the other.
Villanova, you can't
I
get
saw
him now.
one at the Wawa.
Right. Yeah. So it's a fun discussion too, because if they did it, it's beforehand. It's before free agency starts. Sure, we'll probably hear some rumors about where LeBron might be leaning towards. They haven't hired their head coach yet. So who is the head coach? How much is he going to have a hand in that? Is it going to be JJ Redick because they have a podcast together, Derek, and they can now draw up things and let us see what it looks like? The whole thing is intriguing just because of the potential of landing his father and what that might look like. Talk about that another time, but what that might look like on this Sixers basketball team with Maxey and Embiid as they go forward. What position is Bronny James anyway, Scout Derek Bodner?
Waving towels.
Yeah, on the bench.
Waving towels.
Yeah.
He's what, a 6'2" combo.
He's first
guard.
team all clapper. That's.
So
I'm sorry, I don't mean to make light of.
Like,
obviously, he's a much better basketball player than I ever will be. But yeah, like before the cardiac issue that he had that derailed his season, he still viewed. I'll say there's some controversial stances that were taken. There were people talking about him at times as potential top 10 pick, but it was always hard to divorce what we all knew and heard from his dad about wanting to play with him from Bronny, the prospect.
And then you also, when we get the highlights, we get the good highlights from,
for sure.
from Sierra Canyon.
Great highlight player. And like from what I have seen and heard, like wants to be a two-way guy, like certainly has good athleticism, but we're talking about a kid who at the combine today measured in at 6'1.5" without shoes, right? Like he's a 6'3" guard in shoes who's kind of a point guard, but not really, and not much of a shooter.
Can he defend well enough?
That's it. And like even guys who can defend at that size, you're mostly limited to, let's say, like the 1 through 3, like, and that those can be valuable defenders, but you have to be at like the high end of that archetype to make it as a defense first prospect. So then you have to go to the offensive side of the ball. Didn't really show anything at all at USC. I think in high school, he's averaging 14 points a game as a senior in high school. And that's not including the like EYBL, all those other, the circuits that these guys go on where he's not much of, he's an off ball slasher type guy. And it's hard to make it as one of those in the NBA when you're 6'1.5" without shoes on. Like that's an uphill climb, even if you are LeBron's son.
Gene Ross says, saw LeBron picking up Olipop at the Jenkintown Acme. So there you have it.
Hey, he's getting around because Winona saw him at the Target and City Line.
He's around,
Hey,
man.
by the way, Winona was sending me some Olipop treasure troves that she discovered over the weekend. So shout out to Winona.
Well, I'm glad she finally unblocked you. That's good. Now you get content.
Now
like
we
that.
have a great relationship.
That's right.
Winona.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the guy, and we were talking about beforehand, even when he was at Sierra Canyon, that school's loaded with a lot of talent, and he's averaging the 14. So yeah, the numbers are going to be spread around, but all we ever really saw were the great highlights, how good he was. And sometimes you'll hear people seep things in. I know people out there on the West Coast just like these guys do, and they're saying like, look, no, we evaluate these. He's not that good. He's not a pro player. He's LeBron James' son. He's a college player.
Do you know what TJ McConnell averaged as a senior in high school?
Like, didn't he average like 27?
34, 8, and 9.
Yeah, I thought, yeah.
Do you know
Yeah.
it wasn't Pat Bev, like the king of Chicago when he was a high school guard?
Close to 40, right? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And you guys know what Pat Bev and TJ McConnell look like in the league. By the way, shout out to TJ having some big moments in
taking
these
over
playoffs.
the series.
He has been awesome.
Taking
in the
over the
playoffs.
series.
So happy to see that trajectory for him.
Yeah. So even Amari Bailey goes to UCLA as a senior. Bronny James is a junior, supposed to be his team, but there's other talented players that go on to play college basketball as well. And he had the cardiac arrest issue, unfortunately for him, but happy that he was able to get back on the floor and couldn't really. I'd imagine for him and his family, that inner circle feel like they weren't able to show enough, which is why they were talking about the transfer portal for him in the very beginning anyway. So the storyline from here, by the time we get to the draft, and then you include the LeBron James senior part, the conversation is going to be very interesting going forward, especially the discussions here locally about him.
Yep.
I'm just glad that LeBron, for now, he's not one of those guys who has a kid, names him after himself, and puts the senior on the jersey. I always thought that was a little weird.
Yeah.
I remember
Feels like a little like, hey, look at me.
I remember early on before he was born where he was discussed as, I'm not going to do that to my son. Do you remember that? I remember him specifically saying wasn't going to name my son LeBron James because of the pressure that was going to be on him. They did it. It's okay. It worked out fine.
I don't listen. You name they're your kids, right? Like you name them whatever you want to name them.
He said
we have a Ricky the Fourth who we love. That's on the Sixers. That we love the backstory behind. I just always thought like when guys have kids while they're in the league, and then they're like, "Hey, I'm senior." When it's like, yeah, we know.
Marcus
like,
Morris,
we know
baby.
you. We
Marcus
don't know
Morris.
your like 2-year-old son, right? Like I don't know.
That's the Marcus Morris moment of the day.
Podcast,
Well, if he does come to Philadelphia, he might need a credit union.
Well, I was going to say, Bronny, you know what first round pick makes? We're talking $4 to $5 million if he gets that 16th pick.
Got to find somewhere to put it.
You're going to have to put that somewhere. You might want to check out TrueMark. We have heard from people who recently joined TrueMark Financial Credit Union right here in Philly, and it's been an eye-opening experience to the difference between banking at a bank compared to becoming a member of a credit union. When you join a credit union like TrueMark Financial, you become a part owner, which means profits come back to you instead of going to shareholders. TrueMark Financial has better rates, lower fees, a better return on savings, and more flexible options overall. And of course, the same digital tools and technology we all want. But the best part is TrueMark Financial is local. They're headquartered in Fort Washington, and with 24 branches across the Philly area, they are deeply rooted in our community. They serve our community and only our community, so their investments and programs help our people right here at home. Becoming a member of a credit union has so many benefits over being a customer at a bank. It's a total no-brainer. Head over to truemark.com/PHLY to learn more or to find a branch near you. That's truemark.com/PHLY. Federally insured by the NCUA.
And listen, as he finds that credit union and puts the money in the bank, I don't know what his grooming situation is, but that's his situation. So we'll leave that there for Bronny and do whatever he needs to do. But hey there for all of you. Don't know yours either. But I got to tell you, as we get ready for the summer and we get ready for our first holiday coming up here in a few weeks, and you're ready to hit the beach, well, you're soaking up those summer vibes and you want to unveil your beach body that you've been working on. You've been working out in the gym, right? Getting all of that done to make sure everything is, your physique is right, well, then you might want to go ahead and start to sculpt a little bit because you want to make sure that that's right as well. Well, you're in luck if that's what you're looking forward to do, because our friends over at Manscaped have you covered from head to toe with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. This ultimate all-in-one grooming kit is set to have you looking and feeling your best in the summer. Trust Manscaped and unlock your confidence you need to turn those heads this season. Join the 10 million men worldwide who do trust Manscaped.com, like myself, for 20% off plus free shipping by using code PHLY. Let's make this summer your smoothest one yet. Embrace your summer bod goals with all the inclusive Performance Package, again, 5.0. Perfect for those aiming for the crisp, clean, and confident look. If you're also looking for the updated Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Growing and Body Hair Trimmer, got the summer makeover for you. It's waterproof, designed for splashy pool parties and beach hangouts that you will be attending all summer long. If you want to make sure that you clean your ears, you get the hair in your ear, maybe trim the nose hairs that you have going on, well, you got to do that with the Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer for those pesky hairs. Be gone. For those sunny beach days, you don't want to leave home without the crop preserver. Anti-chafing ball deodorant. Let the sun see you shine, not sweat. And that includes the people around you. Surprise, your purchase comes with a free Boxers 2.0 Midnight Bravo for comfort and style that fit like a dream. So if you want to feel comfortable and sleek and smooth and look great for your summer body, get 20% off right now plus free shipping with the code PHLY at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code PHLY at manscaped.com. The summer sun is here to stay, so trust Manscaped to keep your pubes at bay.
I'm just glad you're doing those reads, because there's no way I would have resisted the temptation to make some kind of family jewels joke talking about King James and his son.
You could have.
I'm just throwing it out there. That's why you're the Manscaped guy, and I just talk about beverages and things of that nature.
Fair enough. 2018, I'm going back to the story Kyle was referencing LeBron James. His quote was, "When I was younger, I didn't have a dad. So my whole thing was, when I have a kid, not only is he going to be a junior," at first he was saying he wasn't, but then he explains a little bit, not only is he going to be a junior, I'm going to do everything that this man didn't do to improve that. So before he was talking about why he didn't, but then to add on why he did it, he wanted to make sure that he made sure that he let everybody know that his junior is going to do way more than the senior of himself.
How often has this happened? Right, the Griffeys overlapped a year.
Mm-hmm.
How many other father-sons have played on the same team? I can't remember that many.
I'm thinking of juniors in general, so I think of the Alomars. Those are brothers,
right?
More so than anything.
It's just hard to get that overlap in age. Yeah. It's real tough.
Because the dad has to play for forever,
a long time.
And the kid has to break in when they're very young.
Gordie Howe?
Was there overlap?
I think there was I want to say there was an overlap with.
And Gordie did play forever, from what I remember, but so I'm not Mr. Hockey over here.
Hanging on long enough for his son to play a little bit there. I want to say that one, but those are the only two that I can really think of. Football wise, I can't.
But so to bring it into what we're talking about here, I do think part of the reason Bronny is staying in is probably because they're trying to play together, right? Like based on everything we know about Bronny as a prospect, I think if there was not the threat of LeBron signing somewhere specifically to play with his son, I think Bronny would probably go undrafted, right? Like if all things are equal, coming off the season that he had with the medical event, I'd say the underwhelming return to the floor, and understandably underwhelming return to the floor, but underwhelming all the same, right? Mm-hmm. If all that was true and he didn't have LeBron as his dad, more than likely he's either going undrafted or probably not coming out and declaring for the draft in the first place. He's going to stay at USC or transfer to another program where he can get more minutes, get more reps, whatever. To me, and like another layer to it is that LeBron has been very outspoken about how proud he is of Bronny being one of the, I don't remember if he's the first or one of the first people in his family to actually go to college, right? Like that's a big deal for their family. And so I don't think he leaves without at least some understanding between the two of them of like, let's try to make this happen.
No, there's no doubt at the very least, even if it doesn't happen, it boosts his stock and gets him a better chance of being drafted. If he stays in for another year, I don't think he's going to improve enough where, let's say LeBron's not a free agent. I don't know if Bronny's getting drafted next year. So I think it's definitely helping his stock, whether or not that means they are truly confident that it will get him on the same team as his father, or just it'll boost his stock that some team in the second round will go like, might as well take a shot and see if LeBron forces a trade or something. But yeah, it's definitely helping him.
And he's been scouted for a long time now, being in the circuit with the EYBL, the high school stuff, playing AAU. What he's been around, so they've picked apart every strength, every weakness for what he has right now, what position that we talked about as a combo guard, would he play? They've seen everything. Now, the curious part also is now what they haven't been able to do is get their hands on him in these individual workouts that he's probably going to have lined up. They're going to line up some for him, and how he matches up against some of these other prospects maybe in the same range in the second round as him. Maybe they look like they're not ducking anybody, so they were like, hey, we'll play against any first rounders that are out there. And Kyle, this is not a deep draft. So when we even talk about that, this is not a deep draft, but we're still even looking at him as a second round pick. He's not even a high pick. Yeah. His teammate at USC, Isaiah Collier, is projected to be a first round pick. He's a combo guard, and he's way ahead of Bronny James in terms of the development of where he is. Then money-wise, when we talk about the credit union stuff jokingly, look, he's going to have the endorsements because he's already has Nike because of his dad. He's done, I think, headphone commercials already because of his dad. And that was even before he got to USC. That was the stuff because of all the new rules that are had as even high school players are able to make money off the floor. So financially, outside of his money, of course, with his dad, he's got his money. So this one's going to be fun. And so I wanted to ask you, how do you, as a guy who's covered the league as long as you had, looking at all this stuff, not necessarily juniors and players coming in following their parents.
Yeah, I haven't been in the league long enough to cover a lot of junior, seniors.
What do you make
both sides of it? Anyway.
What do you make of the coverage of Bronny James going into the NBA draft and even college? Forget about the high school stuff.
It's always extraordinarily difficult, right? Like the example I always think of was, I remember when Michael Jordan's sons were in high school, and just because they were Jordan's sons, they're getting put on national TV, and they played a game against Eric Gordon's high school team, and Eric Gordon dropped like 50 on them and beat them by like 40 points. And it was like, oh my God. And that it wasn't even like Jordan's sons obviously were not very good relative to their father, but like as general basketball players, they're pretty good, right? Like
one of them went to Central Florida
or South Florida. I can't remember. But like it's always so difficult to separate the son from the father when the father is at the highest point in the sport. There have been plenty of success stories, like legacy families in sports. Like the Matthews family in football is a great example. Bruce Matthews, Hall of Famer. He's a offensive tackle, offensive lineman. And then Clay Matthews, incredible, probably Hall of Fame football player in his own right. So they're generally, the legacy is like you pass on the great genetics and the will to compete and the love for the game and all that stuff. And we see a lot of that with Bronny, but I just think that so much of where he's been put in the rankings and how he's been talked about in the draft prior to the medical event last year was directly tied to LeBron, which is not fair to him, right? Like, I'm sure on some level it's like, oh, great, this is an example of getting a leg up because of who your dad is.
Yeah.
But there also comes the other side of it, the scrutiny. And like he comes back from what for anybody, let alone a kid playing sports, would be a life-changing type event. Like you have to take stock of what matters to you, and you're trying to enjoy being a college freshman, and you have a cardiac emergency. And, I can't imagine going through all that. and then you return to the floor, which should be this like big triumphant moment, right? And then it's just people picking you apart, like, oh, he's just LeBron's son, like this kid sucks, blah blah. And like, I can't imagine going through that. So I think he's probably gotten a leg up in some ways, but he's also had to deal with the same type of, or a similar type of backlash as his father has, of when that spotlight is that bright, every single thing you do is overanalyzed to an insane degree, which is why we've also talked about Bronny James for 31 minutes on a podcast on May 13th with this much time left to go because that's the nature of the beast. That's just how it goes.
I saw someone in the chat saying this is where Sixer fans are in terms of talking to Bronny James. It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
100%.
For NBA teams, not just the Philadelphia 76ers.
There's a reason Shams reported it the second then he felt confident enough to do so.
When we were sitting back there and said, Kyle, look, we're about to talk about this. It's on TV because
Brian Windhorst on Get Up this morning talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, look, that's where we are right now. That's what this is when it comes to Bronny James. We were even discussing the guy took a spot from somebody on the McDonald's All-American team. Was it that deserving, or was that because he's Bronny James and the attention that was going to be thrown there because he's on that team playing in that game where you get more views, more watchers of that basketball game simply because of that, because he's there.
Well, I mean, to your point, Bronny James was 27th in the RSCI rankings, which is a combination of a bunch of different high school rankings. The players in front of him, Elmarco Jackson, Trenton Flowers, Samto Cyril, AJ Johnson. How much you think anyone's talked about any of them here in the last month? Nobody. They don't have a father that we recognize.
No
big AJ Johnson guys in the chat.
Well, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think we've gotten a comment. I haven't scanned all of the chat yet, but I don't think so.
Well, if Bronny James is in fact going to be in the NBA, in the association, you might want to go see him. Maybe he's playing for you or Philadelphia 76ers and you want to go get the tickets because possibly brought his dad with him. And I'll tell you how to get those tickets. That's through our great partners here at Game Time. Game Time is an authorized, pardon me. They are.
I was going to say, that's a pretty key detail.
I said that wrong. They are an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, and which means getting playoff tickets for the remaining games is even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off of the basketball game. So New York and Indiana coming back this way. If you say, you know what, I'm going to be in New York maybe for some work, some fun, and you want to go see a playoff basketball game, and you want to check out the ticket prices and see if you can get into the Garden to go check out a 2-2 series, getting ready for Game 5. It's the best of 3 going forward. Well, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying those NBA tickets. If you're also maybe on the West Coast and the games that are ongoing there, have at it. Go check out Minnesota and Denver. Great series right now. Dallas and OKC. You might be interested in that. Have at it. Go and check out those games as well. Easy to find and buy those tickets for every kind of event in your area. Also in Major League Baseball. Views from your seats, as we mentioned, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection as well. And don't forget, the schedule for football is about to drop. So the NFL schedule about to drop. You want to jump on those tickets ahead of time and not wait for the last minute opportunity. You want to get ahead of it. Please have at it with our friends at Game Time. Flash deals, save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select tickets ahead of the game or event. All-in pricing, toggling this feature, shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. And again, Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
The unauthorized ticket vendor of
very authorized.
Yes, very authorized.
You know who else is certainly authorized around here? Our good friends at Olipop.
Derek, where you at?
The new kind of soda with only
I'm here.
2
I
to
came prepared
5
this
grams
time.
of sugar. Look at, we got a
Tropical.
classic grape. We got Derek with, is that a tropical punch you got down there,
punch.
Derek? Look at that. Beautiful thing to see on the set.
You got a special order in the fridge, though.
Yeah, sorry. I don't think you get discounts on the
Right.
fridge. I can't help you out with that one. But Olipop is available online and in almost 30,000
that.
retailers nationwide.
Olipop, you want to send me a fridge? I'll take it.
I will certainly take an Olipop fridge.
Send 4 of them total. Get Bree one too. Myself.
Those retailers include the most recent launch at all Wawa stores, where you can scoop a classic root beer or a strawberry vanilla at a Wawa near you. I know I'd say some of the same things in a lot of these ads, guys, but I want to tell you a little story about Olipop from this past weekend. A lot of you in the chat are familiar with my girl, our friend Winona, who has said, hey, I'm keeping an eye out for Olipop. I'm interested in it. I want to drink some. I got a message from Winona over the weekend. In the store, getting the weekend stash, at least a 6-pack, and she sent me this beautiful photo of, there were some flavors in there that even we haven't gotten here at the PHLY offices. I saw a ginger lemon, which I didn't know that existed, but also all the flavors I like to tell you guys about all the time.
I know about that one.
Classic root beer, strawberry vanilla, cherry cola. Let's see, what else? Cream soda. There's the Good Luck ginger ale that Devon goes to. There's cherry vanilla. There's cherry cola. There's all kinds of different flavors for you guys to get your hands on when you see Olipop in stores, or if you decide to go online and use the discount code that we have for you. That's PHLY20 for 20% off of your next Olipop order. The discount only applies to one-time orders, not to subscriptions. Olipop is sold online at drinkolipop.com and on Amazon, and it's available in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including Wawa, Target, Sprouts, Wegmans, ShopRite, and GoPuff. So thank you to Winona, who's showing that, you know, when we talk about these things on the show, we stand behind them. We enjoy them. We got 2 of the people on the show drinking Olipops today. You guys got to check it out if you have not already.
All right, we got a lot of people in there talking about the Olipops too. Yeah, a lot of people. Jay says they're the GOAT. We got other people saying it's Mango Gango says Olipops are goated. So yeah, we
need a Mango Gango flavor. Is what it's more and more people are saying it.
Transitioned right from talking about Bronny's Pop to Olipop.
Well, we can get them a little deal too if they come to Philadelphia as the package deal.
LeBron, I'll have my people at Olipop talk to your people.
So, Derek, what do you make of the coverage though overall? You laid out where he ranked in college and high school coming out of Sierra Canyon, but the coverage overall, of course, it started with LeBron James Sr., but what do you make of the coverage when we have so many other talented young players there too, but not getting...
It's ridiculous. If I was still covering the draft professionally, I would be losing my mind right now. I would be losing my mind because there's so many other players who are deserving of being talked about and being mocked to certain players and being debated. And we're talking about a guy who's not an NBA draft prospect. But as somebody now on this side of the table who has to come up with content every day, I get it. Like, you've got to talk. Like, his father's pushing it. You're going to talk about it. You're obviously going to talk about LeBron. It's going to get ratings. If that's going to influence his decision, it makes it a worthwhile topic to discuss even more. But if I were still covering the draft, yeah, there's no reason you should be talking about him.
Well, and here's to that point. The underlying part of all of this is that LeBron is still good enough to justify the conversations.
Wild. That's wild how good he is.
It's insane that he is this good, this deep into his 30s, having played just an absolute metric ton of minutes, having taken the all-time scoring lead from Kareem and padding on top of that to put it in a place where it's going to be difficult for basically anybody to ever catch him, although people believe that about Kareem. So sure one day the record will fall, but that's why it is a conversation, is because LeBron played, once again, a lot of games this season. Even for a guy that deep into his career, he's still fairly durable. Part of that is because he spends a ton of time and money on preserving his body with the off the court stuff, with the workouts, with just the all-consuming focus on what he needs to put into his body to give himself the best chance to play. And to bookend the conversation about Bronny, the other important thing on the Sixers end is that if they were to draft him as part of it, they also have a team to put around LeBron that offers a compelling pitch to him to say, come here, play with Maxey, play with Joel Embiid. Not only do you have a chance to play with your son, you have a chance to potentially win a title with those guys and the right mix of role players around them. Like, that's what this ultimately comes down to, right? It's why I think it'd be fun to see San Antonio or somebody like that draft Bronny, and you say, oh my God, LeBron and Wemby. It's like a torch passing moment. But LeBron doesn't want to go somewhere that's basically a retirement home team, right? Like, San Antonio is not that close to competing. Maybe they could make some other moves and get closer, and LeBron and Wemby are good enough to be certainly a playoff team. I don't know what beyond that. But you could, if you can convince him to come here, they are automatically, at least next season, while we still believe we are going to get LeBron James, you have a chance to win a title. And that's what this is all about. Like, ultimately, that's the underlying theme of all of this is like, what brings you closer to winning a title? And I don't think anybody they take in the second round or could potentially take in the second round comes anywhere close to moving the needle in that way. And that's the argument for it, right? Like, it's by far the biggest potential impact move on your title odds. And we know that's how Daryl Morey thinks. Everything is done with, how can I add percentage points to my title chances, essentially? And this is probably their best shot by way of the 41st pick in a weak draft.
Yeah, because, I mean, we should be talking about, as I look at one of the mock drafts, we should be talking about Baylor Shireman as the Sixers' 41st pick in the draft.
The amount of Creighton games I have watched this
Right.
year is...
I've seen some just because of...
Look, in a month we can do that draft show, and there will be 3 people watching us talk about him.
Yeah,
trying to figure it out. That said, with that 41st pick, it's not the only one with the draft lottery yesterday. Why was it on a Sunday?
Yeah,
Normally on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well,
it was
threw me
the
off.
first game of the Western Conference Finals. Normally, it was one of the conference finals,
and they moved it up.
They moved it up. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they knew the draft class stunk, and they're like, let's just get out of
especially
the
not
way.
only that, but on Mother's Day of all things too. Like, everyone's got something to do.
Yeah, so that was
Very
odd.
weird.
That said, Sixers wound up right there where we thought, right there in that 16th spot. Ironically enough, the mock draft that I'm looking at has Kyle Filipowski from Duke as a pick for the Sixers as center. But we believe, as you said, about 80-85% right now that we feel that's not even going to be their pick. So how much value is with that 16th pick in any potential trade that may happen?
Can I just say, we would then have another Philip with a P. That'd be perfect.
That is true.
Oh no,
That'd be perfect.
But he wouldn't get cut. And he's local. So yeah.
Look, I think the overwhelming odds are the pick is traded, in part because there is that $4 million cap hold that happens, until that player is, even if that player is unsigned, you have a $4 million cap hold that will eat into your cap space. Whereas, let's say they trade it, like I said, maybe an early second round pick and a future first round pick. Then the second round pick doesn't have a cap hold. So instead of that $4 million cap hold, you have a basically incomplete roster charge of like $1.1 million. You basically save $2.9+ million on your cap sheet. And when you're talking about the margins the Sixers have, that's significant. So I just don't think Daryl Morey is likely. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think it's likely he's going to look at someone available at 16 and go like, I think that player can contribute right now, and I'm willing to forego a couple $1 million in cap space to make that happen. I think that's unlikely. So like I said, either it's because they have a major trade lined up at the draft that maybe they didn't pick someone else pick a player for someone else and execute that trade at the new year, or maybe it's just trading for a future pick, so you have that flexibility to basically kick the can down the road in terms of trade flexibility. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's not going to have a ton of trade value. Like, it's a pretty weak draft class overall. I think some people will say that there's some depth to it, so that helps. And it might be the Sixers' second most valuable pick just because it is closer right now, whereas a lot of them are years down the line. I think obviously the most valuable is that Clippers unprotected pick. It's a trade chip for sure. It's probably one of their 2 or 3 most valuable trade chips, but it's not a huge difference maker.
To your point about likely not getting a contributor there, if you no, it's not apples to apples because Ricky was was not a first round pick. Although there were times when people believed he was, but just depending on the shot coming out of school
during the process.
Like he was a first round talent, but the shot really screwed with that.
That's exactly the way I wrote when they took him. First round talent, undrafted jump shot.
So Daryl was asked about Ricky at his end of season presser and maybe his expectations, development and whatnot. And essentially what he said was you can't really expect someone like him to contribute in a meaningful way until year 3. Right. And so if we're just to say, to give Ricky some kudos he didn't get in the draft process last year, say, okay, if he's similar in talent to someone you would get at 16, and Daryl is likely looking at that player they would take at 16 in the same way, drafting a guy right now at 16 who is not going to help them for another couple years when we all see that they need guys who can help right now, I think it's in Morey's mind, it's probably very simple calculus. It's like, if I can move this for present day value, whether that's packaging it with other things, other players to get a ready-made player prospect in here right now, whether it's taking that, turning it into more picks down the road and then being able to consolidate extra stuff in pursuit of, I just don't see what the case is that Daryl is going to make that pick. Like, they're going to say that. They'll say, oh yeah, we like these guys, and if they get boxed in and there's nothing available on the trade market that they like by the time the draft comes, we'll start to hear names get floated out. But like, just based on what their window is and based on the fact that they sat and said, we're just waiting until this summer to make big moves, I find it hard to see a world where they sit at 16 and pick and don't do anything with it.
And I agree, but to fight back a little bit, we've been talking so much about they just need some young people on this roster, and if they feel good about, if they feel anyway. Fair point, but they need some young people on this roster if they feel like their player development is good enough and how we've seen Ricky.
They'll just re-sign Jeff Doughton again.
I don't disagree with that. I'm throwing it the other way, just as far as the conversation goes. 16, young player, probably going to be a young player, but with some years in college basketball because the top guys are going to come out as freshmen and sophomore. Maybe you get a junior that could come in and play a little bit as a backup big or a guard who can defend a little bit, handle the ball, take some of that second unit pressure off of some. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Most years, I would look at this as a chance to get a swing at a young player that they infrequently get a chance to.
Right.
Maybe you get lucky and you get a Tyrese Maxey fall to your lap. Most years, I would say that. But because of the cap implications, I would be surprised. And just because of the sheer importance of getting a trade and or signing this year right and doing it like it has to be done at this window. It has to be done this summer. Because of that, I would be like maybe a 5% chance they keep this pick.
Yeah.
But forget I said that when we do 2 weeks straight of draft coverage later on next month.
Well, and look, there is always the possibility that draft night happens and somebody who everyone's expecting to be a top 5 guy ends up at 16, right? Like, I think the general consensus on this class is that there are very few guys who have separated from the pack. And so it's not like most years where you're going to, oh, well, that guy's definitely going at 3 or this guy's definitely going in the top 8. Like there's potential for any number of players to slide down the board depending on, today, for example, we were discussing this before the show. Stephon Castle at UConn, I think, has generally been considered like a top 5 to 7 guy in a lot of mocks and a lot of the lead into this pre-draft process. Goes to the combine and there was some sort of, it appears to have been a measurement fiasco and everyone is panicking and like, oh, my favorite team can't take him now. He's a small guard. He's only 6'2". I thought he was 6'4", 6'5". And so this year has a lot of noise and there's a lot of motivation from every side of that battle, team side, player side, agent side, manager side, to spin their narrative and try to push guys into the part of the board they want them, it could end up that somebody or a couple somebodies hang around and are still there at 16. I just don't think that that's what the Sixers are planning to do with that pick, if I had my guess.
I watched Steph Castle a little bit, college. If he dropped to 16, because right now, what is he projected at?
I think he's
top 10?
Like 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that
so
range.
Something like that. If he dropped, then I would be like, all right. gotta at least look at it. But like
just what they need, a guard who can't shoot.
Yeah, man. But can defend the hell out of the basketball,
Yes.
man. Can defend the hell out of the basketball. All right, I did want to ask you guys. Well, the Rockets did get number 3, Atlanta number 1. Not that we care all that much, but to the Rockets' point, as a team that was like on the fringe, they have an opportunity to do something there. And one of the teams that, just gonna say it, that has been linked to Kale because of their draft capital, and even other teams with some players, that's one of those teams. So when the Sixers fans look at somebody like Mikal being available, calling Brooklyn, Houston's pitch may have gotten a little bit better now that they have a top 3 pick in the draft.
The Hawks went from beating the Sixers and advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals to getting the number 1 pick in the draft in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
What a fraudulent
because it was a farce.
Also, by the way, the Chicago Bulls were a play-in loss away from the number 1 pick in the draft. That's how crazy them getting the number 1 pick.
Yeah, they had like a 3% chance or something like that. The Hawks did,
and they worked for the Hawks.
It was literally decided by a single game in the play-in tournament. That's wild.
Really interesting to see what they do.
I think there are going to be some big changes there. I don't know what they look like, obviously, right? But
I mean, I think everyone assumed Murray was gone anyway.
Yeah.
The question is now, do you trade Trey and build around your number 1 pick?
I would say no, but it also depends on what the return looks like, right? Like you can't really put together a package from this year's draft or like heavily, like the Spurs have 4 and 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care about those picks if I'm Atlanta, because why would you trade out? Or I guess if you want to just own the top 10 and just hope that one of those guys hits. But I would say I'd much rather have Trey, who's, like a pretty routine all-star level player, and whatever you can get from one than whatever the collection of junk and future stuff is you'd get back for him. But it's it's an interesting conversation, I suppose. Who do you think are they just going to take Sarr, you think, the big man, pair him with Trey?
Seemed like it would make the most sense, but I truthfully haven't scouted the top of the draft.
Yeah, there's been no reason, especially like I'm not gonna pretend like I was watching Perth this year, right?
Well, that's back when I used to cover the draft. The one thing I used to hate was people swoop into the last second, watch 20 seconds of YouTube, and act like experts. So I'm not going to try to do that right now. But
especially the international guy. That's like at least the college guys.
You have an opinion.
Most average basketball fans at least have you have a frame of reference for, okay, if this guy's good in the ACC or he's good in the SEC or the Big 12, the Big 10, whatever it is. I sort of know what that means for you were good against like in conference or in the tournament and this and that. I can kind of project that out. When we're getting into like, hey, how good was this guy in the Adriatic League or in Australia?
I remember people throwing a lot of shade Luka's way because he's big, pudgy, not super quick. Like that's not going to translate. I know a lot of people didn't trust his jumper because they're shooting like 32% over there, and it's like no, like when I see it come off, it looks pretty clean. Yeah. But it's a lot tougher. I mean, Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot looked like a physical monster playing over there, and sometimes it just doesn't translate.
That's why he was taken. And they missed out on some others.
TLC, baby.
Was he 24?
24, and then Korkmaz was 26.
Yeah.
And then Kuzma, I believe, was like right after
27.
them.
And Hart
was 20. Hart was 30. Well. Yeah, Hart was 30. So what do you make of the
There's
Houston
some revisionist history on Josh Hart, by the way. I've seen some people in Philadelphia who are like, why didn't they take it? It's like Josh Hart.
Well, it's because you had 2 late round picks. That's why.
He was not very good for a good period of time in the NBA. Like I credit to him for one, getting better, and the Knicks for finding the role that he needed to be in. but his flaws were very meaningful at his previous stops, right? Like there's a reason he didn't work out in New Orleans or Portland or these other places that he played
LA.
for. That's what I mean. Like it's more, everyone likes to dump on, oh, you didn't recognize this guy. I give credit to the Knicks for finding the niche that he needed to be in. Like that's to their credit. If you want to dump on the other teams, fine. But I just think that's kind of a waste of time. To the point about the Houston thing. Yeah. To me, the big variable is less about Houston than it is Brooklyn. Like I don't really understand what their plan is. And I know I've said on the show, like there were rumblings that they weren't trading Kale because they wanted to try to make a move for Donovan Mitchell. And like that would be the guy. It's known that Donovan wants to play in New York, or was at least interested in playing in New York. And that Mikal as the number 2 to Mitchell would be like kind of their ideal world. But one, I don't know if Donovan wants to go there and play in Brooklyn rather than playing for the Knicks, who now have established themselves as like a real deal threat. Like, does Brunson and Mitchell work? I don't know. I just don't know what is going through the heads of Sean Marks and the ownership there, because I feel like if you get that offer from Mikal where they're offering 5 firsts or whatever, I'm surprised they didn't just take it.
Yeah. So like a lot of people push back and be like, well, it doesn't make sense for them to tank because they don't have their own picks, which is true, but it also doesn't make sense to turn down 5 first-round picks for a 27-year-old who's, when you have no real way of building a contender around him during his next 3 years of his prime.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. And in all honesty, like 5 first-round picks for Mikal, as great of a fit as he would be, that's a lot. Like that's superstar level trade package right there that you're saying that you're turning down. It's a lot. I don't know.
Superstar, baby.
Didn't mean to suggest that your cousin wasn't a superstar. I'm just saying that's like KD type shit. All right.
That is. That's why when we talk about
Lowry
Rudy
Gobert type trade,
Lowry marketing, we talk about
Thank you, Danny,
him.
for breaking the trade market.
Getting 4 to 5 for Lowry marketing is Danny Ainge's going to try to hold up teams for that. We'll see. Quickly, we didn't talk last week about Nikola Jokic winning his 3rd MVP. Once again, you guys were in the straw poll all season long. Were you surprised that it ended up him over SGA?
I believe I'd have to go back and check, but
I'm 90% sure I had Jokic.
I nailed the top 3. I don't remember who my 4 and 5 were, but I had Jokic, SGA, Luka in order. So yeah, nothing really didn't have a whole lot to add. Like Jokic played really well, deserved whenever you play as well as he did in the playoffs last year and then follow it up with another great season, I'm never going to take any issue with people saying, yeah, he's
a lot
the
of
best
pushback
guy. He's
that
the MVP.
SGA didn't win it. A lot of pushback.
Oh no, it was 1 and 1A. Like I just looked it up. I had Jokic, SGA, Doncic, Giannis as my top 4.
Yeah, like
I ended up going. Now look, this was the beginning of April, and I went Tatum 5, and I didn't like it at the time. I'm like, I'm just rewarding the best contract in the league. I wanted Brunson. Brunson was my 6th, and I wish I would have swapped those
that.
2. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and look, I agree. I think SGA was 2. He was fantastic. That's great for what he did to be number 2. He didn't win it, of course, but Jokic deserved to win the award, and there was nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
My final 5 was Jokic, SGA, Luka, Giannis, Tatum.
Yeah, that was exactly what I sent Tim as well. And I even told Tim at the time, I'm like, I'm basically caving into the peer pressure of wins and valuing wins. I wanted to put Brunson there, but I just felt like I had to reward a team that won that many games.
And 2 coaching newses around the association. The Phoenix Suns look like they're landing Mike Budenholzer at the year off from being let go from the Milwaukee Bucks. Mike Budenholzer into Phoenix. Ishbia experience continues with Mike Budenholzer.
Go through coaches, man.
Well, listen.
Coaches. Lakers and Suns, man, just swap coaches every other year.
Yeah.
When you need a guy to help you break through in the playoffs, you call Mike Budenholzer.
There you go. Final one, Charles Lee, assistant with Boston, longtime assistant in the league. Charlotte tabs him to be their head man, first-time head coach.
I'm excited for him. My position on assistants is always like, I'll wait and see until you do something. Because I remember when the example I always bring up is Brian Shaw. He was like, oh my God, he's the he's the guy, he's the assistant, and then he was a terrible head coach. Like, you never know how much of it is he just good in a specialized role? Is he just good with the players in that type of setting and doesn't have to worry about the like commanding respect and the tactics and the X and O? Are you good at the CEO type job of being a head coach? Like, you can't really know that until you are a head coach. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot on him. I want to say about the SGA thing. I did not like, and I know it's like, this is how Shaq is. He's just on. I didn't really like that he said to Jokic, like, I thought SGA should have won over you. And it's like, if you want to tell Jokic that in private or whatever, that's fine, right? Like, they have the big man relationship.
Or even like, if you just want to say on the show at a different point, I would have voted for SGA. That's fine too.
Well, and he did. And I think he wanted it to be like, I don't want you hearing it coming from other people type of thing. And I respect that. But as much as Jokic tries to downplay the whole, like, oh, I don't care about the awards, all that, like, don't fucking shit on the guy's moment, right? Like, he just entered a class of player that is, they're what, like 6 to 8 guys who ever won 3 MVPs ever, and he enters that class, and you're like, hey, I didn't think you should have won. Like, that's, I don't know, man.
Didn't look good.
I love the off the cuff nature of Inside the NBA, but I thought that was kind of whack.
No, it was whack. He should not have done that. And that's why now he has to write the diss track that we talked about a little bit last week.
With the Shannon Sharp thing. Yeah, I never ended up listening to that.
Yeah.
I think I'm diss tracked out for a little bit. I think I've listened to a couple of those Kendrick songs like a gargantuan amount of time. So
yeah.
I do not have room in the current playlist or car rotation for Shaq's latest diss record.
I will say, just sort of like closing up this conversation, I do think the Lakers moving on from Darvin and the Suns having Bud, like, that probably curbs superstar player movement. Like, if they were going to, if LeBron James was going to walk away, I'm not sure they're going through this right now. And the amount of say that he will have in that, I think it probably makes it more likely that he stays.
Yeah.
Just closing up sort of like this whole conversation we've had.
I'm not as convinced on the Phoenix part, I would say, just because there's still a lot of weird Kevin Durant stuff out there. There's always a lot of weird Kevin Durant stuff out there. So I like, well, this will be a story or a topic for another day. I might just be hard out on Kevin Durant as a basketball player at this point, because it's just like, bro, you're never fucking happy. Like, just I don't know what needs to be done to put you in a position where you're going to enjoy it. And he loves to talk about how much he loves the hoop, and, you know, like, everything else is nonsense. And then every single season, it's like,
lot of nonsense.
There's a lot of nonsense. And, oh, you're not involved at all. But then the coach got fired and somebody else got traded. And, like, come on, man. Enough's enough.
At some point.
Well, it's like, what's that old saying? It's like, if you wake up every day and all you see are assholes, you're the asshole.
Oh, no, he's definitely part of the problem. That being said, sign me up. I'll sell my soul. I'm fine with that.
We can discuss
the amount of moody, pouty. I don't know, man. I might just be, because people felt this way about LeBron for a long time. Like, I don't want keep him away from my team, and I always thought that was stupid.
Yep.
But I think I've gotten to that point with Kevin Durant. Like, I don't even care how good he is.
Yeah, for me, man.
Sign me up.
I can't do it.
Yeah, man.
Story for another day.
Another day. Because we still have to do our conversation about him leaving in the first place. That'd be a fun one. So we'll do that later in the summer.
Spiral Out is right, though. You keep talking that shit, he's going to have an accountant here. He's going to start firing back.
Kevin Durant, I am on 10 every time I get on this show, just so you know.
He's
anyway, I want to say thank you to all our wonderful people who are here with us today. Man. First off, my girl, Winona. Winona, hope you are enjoying that 6-pack of Lollipop you got over the weekend. Martian Lynch, Bootzilla, Boots, Spiral Out. Public Enemy #1, Money Mar.
What up, Mar?
Jay, Dave, Aaron.
Aaron, what's happening?
You better love somebody.
Whoa.
SLR.
Pause.
Rupert Pupkin. DJ Hammer. Coach Lowell Ricketts. Spencer,
what up, Hammer?
Spencer Cotman. Chris B. Our guy, Al, the 2-minute warning.
What up, Al?
Alex McCoy, Brian Knight, Demetrius Stinson.
Meech, what's happening?
I think I'm Big Meech. Lost Sleep TV. Who else we got in
Who
here
else we
tonight?
got?
Brian K. Rick Sachs.
What up, Rick?
I think we was Provolone John in
I
here?
did see
More than
Provolone
likely.
John.
RKF. Calvin.
What up, Cal?
Whenever I see the name Calvin, I think of the sketch from Chappelle Show. Calvin got a job working at Whack Arnold's. I don't know why. No disrespect,
I was
Calvin.
watching
Thank you.
Chappelle Show
Thank you
last
very
night.
much for coming through.
Little Tyrone
Jeffrey
action.
Stewart, Devon
Hello.
Givens in the chat. Elephant in the room.
Whoa. It's a big elephant.
Hey, I know I put on some weight, but relax, man.
Oh,
I
not
don't
you
need
guys.
those kind of comments.
You
William,
what? Who was it? I think that was Eugene yelling about our beach pods. No, that was Martian.
It was Martian.
Yeah. Like, what are you talking
William
about? A shaver? Get in the gym. It's not wrong.
William Morris, Mr. Miller, and Haidar.
What up,
our
Haidar?
friend
Checking
from
in.
overseas. If you have not already, everybody, can you hit that subscribe button for me? Can you
Tell
hit the
a friend,
bell
tell a
icon
friend.
to get notifications each and every time we go live? If you hit the thumbs up, maybe all three people on this set will not have the sniffles at some point.
I've had
But
it for 3 weeks.
if you can't hear the congestion in my voice right now, it's still kind of bad. So regardless, we will be back tomorrow. We might be on a bit of a delay tomorrow. We got some work-related meetings, but whether it's 2:30 or 3 o'clock, if you hit that bell icon, notifications will tell you when we're live. So
Money Mars said the McRib comes back tomorrow.
Oh,
I don't know
boy.
where that comes from. All right, cool.
that's why we're actually late tomorrow. We will
Oh,
see you
man.
Tuesday and see you the rest of the
Need
week.
another one.
Take care, everybody.
We all silly like the mayor.